Welcome to Desteni Movie Night. Tonight we are talking about the musical called Phantom of the Opera. And we have a guest, Yogan. Hi, Yogan.
Hello, everyone. Hi.
And Yogan was who suggested this amazing music show and also the story. And it's a really fascinating story, and it's expressed through music and singing. And I must say I was surprised how enjoyable I found this. And it's a story about an opera, and there are some singers, and there are this show they are about to rehearsal, and then there is an accident what is happening, and then it is becoming obvious that there is someone in the darkness in the opera who is influencing directing points, and he's behind also curious accidents. And this is an interesting story. Yogan, can you tell me about the story?
Sure. So yeah, like Talman was saying, it's like a musical within a musical. So they have like, they have like let's say opera, and there's the actors, there's like let's say the play, the script within within the story, and so you have this theater setting, and then there's the darkness behind it, like Talman was saying, where the person directing things behind the scenes is of course the Phantom. He's like behind there. He's like, you mean like a ghost, influencing things in the darkness. And the Phantom, along with two other characters, form like the main characters. There's the female singer, Christy, who is a singer at the opera, who through let's say tutoring with the Phantom, she becomes like a better singer, and he sort of picks her like to tutor her secretly. So like he's helping her improve her musical skills and her singing, and then she ends up getting a part in the play, but then it sort of gets taken away from her, and then because they have the Dima Prima, who's the famous actress, or the famous singer in the opera, and then she actually gets the part, they see that Christy would have been really great for the part. And then the story goes, and then there's a love triangle involved between the Phantom, Christy, and a childhood friend from Christy's past named Raoul. And throughout the story continues with with the Phantom trying to help Christy, and within him publishing his own script, his own opera to be sung by her. And things become really dark as he's trying to, you could say, woo her, seduce her into a relationship, and she then falls for her childhood friend Raoul, and then the family gets very upset, and then he starts killing some people involved in the theater, and then he starts getting his play set up, and the story continues, and it's really interesting to see all these different conflicts, relationships, and all of it sung within songs, and it all touched on different topics and themes of the darkness, of love, relationships, of so many things I think that we can all relate to. And I think we'll open up this more as we continue. That's a good start, place to start.
Yeah, definitely. And it's really an interesting symbolism that the Phantom has this mask on his face. It's like covering half of his face because he had some accident, I guess, that he's sort of ugly in the judgment of the people. So he's trying to hide it. But not all of this beauty or ugliness, what is he's actually hiding, but also this darkness within his beingness, his mind, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, I relate to that with the mask a lot, to suppression. When you, I mean, for him, you know, if you have a disfiguration on your face, that's kind of like a point of self-judgment, and also with other people judging you, it's like this point of a really tough point that you face within how people treat you. And you know, he obviously became reclusive and hid in the theater like that because he, you know, how he, let's say, you know, I'm sure he would say he hates people because of how they sort of react to him, and how, you know, he sort of can't relate to anyone, so he does become isolated and alone in that sense. And of course, how he reacts to his own situation would make it even worse. Um, and you know, it's not an easy situation to be in, and you know, isolating yourself more sort of led to the situation where he sort of saw Christy as the only way really to relate to someone and to connect to someone. And you know, besides his face, you know, he's a, like in the story, he's a very intellectual guy. He's a very intellectual person. He's a musician. I forget the name, but he's an expert at music and musician and singer. And you know, that's his character. And then he, you know, besides his face, you know, it's just the physical appearance, and he has his, you know, who he is as a person within that. And he sort of doesn't really see that completely. So that becomes interesting because at the story, he does go through a transformation in the beginning to the end, where he does, you know, sort of relate to himself differently, where he does sort of change in some ways. And you know, because of the story, you know, with only being 2 hours long, you can only tell so much. And you know, but it's at least interesting to see that spark or that potential for change within a story. But yeah, you want to share something?
Yeah, definitely. And also, I wanted to add that I was also a sort of suppressive guy when I was a kid, and there was always many things in my mind, but I wore this mask on my face, like nothing's happening. I am just passing through silently, but in my mind, I was completely obsessed with judgments and comparison, and all the time obsessed with this perfection. But I tried to first simulate in my mind, and then I compared to reality, and then didn't work. So then I was trying to suppress myself more because I was trying to hide this imperfection, what I judged of myself. And also I was judged as ugly and weak, sort of, in my mind. So that actually led me to believe that I am a weakling and ugly and this kind of stuff. And yeah, it's really something what just overcomes for the time I'm participating.
Yeah.
And within that point, I also felt this sort of affection towards particular girls in the school, and yeah, that sort of obsessive love I can relate to the Phantom, actually, because it was so hopeless, and also I didn't even act because I was afraid that I could do some darkness or harmful things. So I was just kept myself busy suppressing, but that actually doesn't work, because at one point it has to be exerted without consideration. And also, can you relate from your past?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a lot of the words you use are words that I would use. And like, for example, with the masks, I've said many times to myself how in life, like growing up, I would like use different masks to present myself certain ways. And, you know, in order to just, you know, do what you have to do, you just put on a mask to like be like, let's say, the good worker or the good student, or, you know, whoever you need to be. And that was just part of living daily life, all these different masks. And same thing with relationships too, how there's also a point of suppression for me, like it being difficult to talk to, let's say, girls, to women. And also the ones that I'd be really interested in, to even talk to them would be, even let's say even more challenging. So, even that's like, let's say talking, but to actually like, let's say open up and not to really use like a mask, you could say, which is interesting as it relates to the musical. Is how, I guess I'll spoil it, this whole thing's a spoiler, that at the very end, he does take off his mask, and, that's kind of like something we don't really do in daily life. Not really someone in our life where we at least have all our masks taken off, and we just be ourselves, and we just express. And I think that's a very important point to realize, and to actually find that support in some way. I mean, even with yourself, even if you just have yourself, you can sort of take off your mask with yourself. And even that's something that we rarely do. So, that's something that I think is a cool metaphor with the mask and the phantom and the darkness. And I can relate to that a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, especially when for me, when I was like taking off my own mask, so to speak, I was afraid that how others would judge me, or they would not love me, or I wouldn't be a good boy anymore, because then it's obvious that I am a bad person because of these thoughts or these intentions or even desires to get what I wanted. But then actually the opposite, I realized that the more I was suppressive, the people couldn't relate to me because I was so closed. And as the more I opened up, I realized that we are kind of the same, sort of, because each of us has this secret mind busy telling us that it's not a good idea to open up, because then we can be vulnerable. But then within the sharing, also we can support each other. And there were some pretty cool moments in the musical when the Phantom and Christine started to relate to each other through the music. That was really a cool point.
Yeah. I could talk about that a bit.
Yeah, cool.
So, I mean, I like the music a lot in the musical. There's some songs which are just really, really good, and they relate a lot to when the Phantom is singing and when both of them are singing together, like a duet, and that's always fun. So within there, it's like there's somewhere in the beginning towards the middle of the musical, both of them, they have their duet where they go together, and he takes her to his lair, and he shows her how he lives, and prior to that, they were sort of like, he was sort of helping her and I guess tutoring her, and they have this bond in that sense through music, through two people who relate to a certain area, to a certain field, and this is like let's say their specialty, what they're really good at, and they go really deep into that. And a lot of the lyrics and the songs within that show how it's like, how it's something that's really something that go really deeply in. Like, I guess if people who are watching this, some of them may be having musical backgrounds, and maybe they can relate to how how enjoyable music is, or how interesting it is, or how complex it can be, and how enjoyable and fascinating it can be. And same thing with lots of other different fields, whether it's something like mathematics or science or other arts. All the different fields they go really deep in some way, or at least you can. And so this, how they relate in this musical is that sense, like a really deep deepness within music, and how far they go. And just like with anything in life, when you connect with another person within the same field, you can grow and expand. The same thing too with in this case too. And I just add one more thing. When after their duet, he sings a solo, and he talks about within that his own passion, his own fascination for music, and those lyrics are really interesting. So for anyone who's watching, they could check that out too. It's called "Music in the Night." Is that song? Yeah.
Yeah, and I really like the analogy when he was going upstairs to his sort of desk where there was this piano sort of thing. And when he was there, specifically at the moments, he was so clear and expressive and directive, sort of himself, like really confident within what he was doing, like a composer and director. And it was a powerful experience, I guess, for himself also, because then that's why he was able to connect with Christine so deeply, because it was without the mask. Even when his own face was covered with the mask, through the music, they were able to connect. It was interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have a question. Martha now. Hello, thanks for the subject of movie. Have you ever found the point when did you start comparison to others? Not blaming the TV, but for me it was a big point when I was starting to watching TV. Just sharing. Cheers. Can you tell me something about this comparison yoga?
So I guess she's asking about comparison, right? Well, I mean, I guess with comparison and blame, when you compare yourself to other people, I think she's trying to say more judgment. I guess maybe she's talking about the mask when he has his mask on, and or because of his facial disfiguration, that he feels like he's judged from others. I guess that's what she's trying to point to. It's a little bit confusing, but yeah, I mean, for me, relating to that, like I didn't say this yet, but when you were talking before, Talman, about with the mask and everything, how for me when I said that the fan like hated everyone, that's kind of what I felt growing up, within seeing myself as, let's say, inferior in certain respects, and feeling like who I was on the outside didn't reflect who I was on the inside, and then in a way kind of like blaming other people for how they responded to me, how they treated me, and it was always in that kind of point, like a victim. Exactly.
Yeah, and I was also like even blaming the TV or the movies, showing these pictures of possible lives, what I cannot grasp because it's too far away. I was blaming even the TV, just referring to the question.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's interesting. When we are blaming, we are basically accepting that we are powerless instead of just looking how we got into this point.
Okay. So one thing I was gonna say before too is how talking with like the limits, because within this musical too, there's like a love triangle that goes on there too. And you know, even though the Phantom Christie has this connection through music, she does fall for Raul, the childhood friend, who I guess is presented as this very handsome person and who's very, I don't know, he seems very well together. He seems wealthy. He's well put together. And I guess in an economic sense or in general sense, most people would want to be with such a person. Someone who's handsome, who's wealthy, you know, that kind of situation. And, you know, the Phantom, he becomes jealous, of course, and he feels betrayed by her. And, you know, it's very interesting to see that love triangle going on, which, you know, I'm sure happens in daily life as well. But one thing that I see is kind of interesting is how the Christie and like you don't really see between the characters that they actually really understand each other, you know, fully, like in all aspects, or at least a lot of aspects. In most cases, they only connect only with one or two things, and that's kind of it. You know, like in real life, in daily life, you would expect maybe to get to know a person a lot more, and you know, kind of deeply, and so at least from what I see in the musical, it was kind of more of a like a teenager kind of love, where you just kind of like someone and you just decide to go out, and then you say you're in love, and then that's it. And then it's kind of like you could say young love, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I can relate to that. Like there is this definition of love and then these feelings coming up. So then I am completely trusting this feeling of this one dimension, and then this regarding all of my basic life, basically.
Yeah, it's like love is like can be a very powerful. It's okay. It's a I would say like a neurotoxin, I guess, but it's just something like almost a very powerful drug that can take you over like an experience that's just kind of like decides who you are, decides what you think, decides what you want to do. It's like you're not really deciding. It's more whatever happens to lead to the next experience of love. And so it's like, it's interesting too, even just that word, like a lot of people just react or respond to that. And because so many memories are connected to that word, and it's so filled with so many meanings and definitions that it's quite interesting how the definition of words and our memories and experiences to words are all attached to that one word, and they all come up when you use it and reference it. And so yeah, I think that's a really cool aspect that the opera musical exposes. And for me, at least, it's kind of obvious, but here we're providing common sense perspectives of what we see. Yeah.
And I would like to talk about this losing ourselves within the love aspect, like falling in love. Have you experienced that thing? And how did you realize that it is not going to work? Or did you realize, or what happened?
Oh, me? Sure.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like I said, it's like an experience. So you experience it, and then you follow it, and then it ends, and there you go. That's like the basic thing of everyone's story, right? It's like that, very basic. And in the moment, it seems so grand and so powerful and so overpowering. And but if you look at it, really what it is, it's very like you feel good, then you feel bad, and then it repeats. And I think a lot of the problem comes when we start defining and valuing it as more than experience and more than what it is, something that you feel within yourself. And I mean, we usually define that as something great because it's like that's like what we do here, like with Desteni and with the Hangouts and the courses, is to provide perspectives. And within the courses, we go in detail within that, where you can look at all of the dimensions related to one experience, whether it's be all the memories involved, all the thoughts involved, all the back chats, the words, the phrases, everything that's involved within that. And you get to have support within that, because it is like a mess, like a chaotic storm in a way, especially when you're within it, when a lot's happening. And you need kind of like a support or structure in order to organize it, understand what it is. And if we be honest here, we don't really have that in daily life. We don't have a support like that in schools or in families or work or anywhere else. It's really like an invaluable thing to do for yourself.
Yeah, definitely. And also I have these memories, like when I was falling into this love towards the person. She was everything for me. And then meanwhile, I was still experiencing self-judgment and even shame for how much I disregarded who I was before, or how much I disregarded my friends, everything. I was just so obsessed, just trying to hold on to this experience and sort of drag I experienced. And in a way, I was a bit split, because I did not like that I am so powerless towards this love energy. But then I had to realize that it's basically my own self-interest. I projected out to this person because I wanted her so much. I didn't even care about anything else, even who I am. So it was sort of losing myself. And then when it fell apart, then I had to realize that I am still here. And then I had to pick myself up and realize how much I compromised myself. And I had to walk myself back from the shame into self-trust. And within that, Desteni I Process was really supporting, because by writing, I was able to write through these patterns of fear and losing myself. and fear of opening myself again. And it was really interesting to realize that the same way I created it, I can stop it if I am aware of it, sort of. And so what would you suggest if someone wants to be with someone else without losing themselves within this energetic feeling of love? Is there any way?
I mean, short answer is yes, but it's a very practical point because, you know, we tend to make such decisions when it comes to that, basically within what we feel and our experiences within that, but now it's so much within what's possible, what's feasible, or what's actually supportive. And because, you know, that, let's say if you have a partner that's only gonna be one dimension in your whole entire life, you're still gonna have everything else going on in your life, your work, your hobbies, your things you like to do, even time by yourself. I mean, we all need time by ourselves at some point. So I mean, so yes, that's like just like with friendship. You know, you can look at friendship how you can make a decision to be friends with someone, and same way support them, then they support you. And you know, partnership like that. You know, if I'm being completely honest, I mean, you know, like usually what that defines is just sex, really. I mean, if you look at because you can do everything else with another person, like be roommates, be like lifelong friends and everything, and be really deep intimate without having sex, and that's fine. And that's so it's like really like one dimension that really changes that, you know. And I think a lot of people don't look at that, really see that for what it is, and it's really, you know, yeah, I'm exposing it right now. But just like a friendship, I would say that would be the same basis you would use for a partnership. That's kind of like you want to make that decision based off of a lot of the same criteria, whether it's practical, whether it's possible, whether you have the time, and you know, not to be lost within experience within it all. Because even within friendships, you can get lost within experience within it all as well. So the same thing is involved, and so really the first place to start would be to investigate your mind, to take the courses to actually find out how you work, understand your own patterns, and develop self-awareness within that, because that's what's limiting within each one of us. You know, that's what's actually the biggest challenge you face, is that relationship with yourself. And from there, you know, you can develop a relationship with others, but within that principle of supporting yourself. And as long as that's clear, then the output and the end result will be doing what's best for yourself, and you have a best for yourself and for everyone result. And so yes, while that is possible, that's not the end goal, really. That's not like the final thing you should be looking for. And if that is, then you're still kind of lost within yourself. And that's something that's hard to realize within a lot of people, because a lot of us make that our only goal. And I could talk about that at length, because there's a lot of interesting systems involved within that, within relationships, and why that happens. And there's support out there, there's information out there. What I'm saying is not new, it's just from what I've learned from others. So you can look us up there too.
Yeah, definitely. And also agreeing on words, sort of like what is the definition of love, or the principle of love I share with you, and then if we can agree, we can expand. But if we are different within our mind already, then we will express differently. We will try to get it or leave it or share it differently. So it's really an interesting point to find an agreement with partner. And for that also I realized that it is a really good point to have an agreement with myself, like what I really want, or what is the principles I'm going to live by, or what is too much. When I am compromising myself too much, then I should restabilize myself, like taking responsibility for myself. Or what is the point when I have to take responsibility for my partner? And because of the nature of the relationships, it's not really communicated through by the partners, because of this overwhelming feeling, just pulling them together and then feeling good, having sex, and then we figure out sort of, and then children come and financial points, marriage, everything. It's really like a casino sort of, as I experienced before. And also I mentioned that there is a online course through the Desteni I Process. It's called the Agreement course. It's directly about relationship and finding balance within oneself and how to agree on practical yet enjoyable living. I suggest to just check it out if someone is interested or having troubles. Also, there is a Desteni I Process Lite course, which is a free course when one can find the principles and the basics of how to use writing and application of self-forgiveness, self-correction. It really assisted me and many others. I really suggest to check it out if having a problems or wanting to find something more consistent within relationship and love, I guess. And any particular point of the story you enjoyed, you like to share?
Well, I really relate a lot to the musical. I really enjoyed it, I think, for that reason, because I saw a lot of myself, a lot of my life experience within that. And, I think a lot of people who enjoy it too relate to that for the same reason as well. I even dressed as the Phantom of the Opera last Halloween.
Oh, cool.
It was just something fun. But yeah, I mean itself, like this, like with the version I saw, like the characters are really good. The actors are really good, like the singers themselves playing the parts, and it's really interesting to see like, all within through music and through words and through that expression. It's really interesting to see that how singing can be that point to sort of express something very, very specifically, very like directly, very defined, and how that it's almost like acting as well, because it's like an expression. And even though a lot of the scenes in the musical, some of it was boring because it's kind of like the fillers, like just telling you what's gonna go in between. But then the good parts are like where the phantom's involved, and that's like really interesting. And overall, it's like a really I would say almost like a classic story because of how of what its theme is, how it's told. It's like it's almost like someone had to like write a story like this because it's such like we all relate to that so much. I think that's why it's like such a classic story. Yeah, I don't know. You want to add anything else?
Yeah, my favorite part was the end when there is this choice the Phantom is creating for Christine to save Raoul, it's a choice. What was both the choices were really bad choices, so there was no good end. And then he was able to just realize or sort of let go all these things, and he was able to just, I don't know, I felt like he's realizing something and changing and being able to give up Christine and all the desires, or I don't know.
Yeah, that's how like, feel? Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, that end scene is really interesting. Basically, he has Raoul hanging by the neck, and he can kill him whenever he wants to. He has him like in a rope, and he says basically that, Christy, you must like come with me and be with me forever, or I'll kill him, basically, right? I think that was it. Okay.
Yeah.
So then, and he, by that point he doesn't have his mask anymore, and like he's just angry. He's just like completely like forget this. I'm gonna kill someone right now, and he's just really, let's say, angry, pissed off, possessed, and we could say like he took off his mask with all of his suppressions coming out. All of his, let's say, his hate for everyone else coming out. So now it's all just, into this killing mode. And so, that leads to that moment, and then
even not really considering Christine herself. Like the Phantom is like Christine is just an object of desire also.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And though what's really interesting what happens next is that, you know, Christy, she like, you know, decides, I guess, to kiss him, which, you know, he didn't ask for that. It's like a decision she made to, you know, within the context, for me, it seemed like she wanted to express to him that, like, you know, she understands, like, he's pissed off, he's angry, he hates everyone, he's been alone all this time, and that's sort of why he's sort of in that situation, you know, of course, within his own responsibility for his own actions, but, you know, she can see the context, so then she does that support, let's say support for him, and then when he receives that kiss, he's sort of like in the shock in the moment because, you know, he didn't ask for that, it just kind of like happened, and then he sort of realizes what he's doing. I guess, like for me in that moment, I would see it as him reflecting on everything he's doing right now, what he's been doing, what he's actually been doing, and within that reflection, like within a quantum moment, you could say, he then realized, okay, what I'm doing is completely wrong. Who am I? I'm like a monster right now. And then after change, then he's like, okay, forget this. You know, just go on, escape. Because then he hears like all of the angry, I guess, people looking for him, like the police or whatever. I don't know, like people are gonna come to look for them. They're looking for him, and then he just wants her to go with Raoul and just run away with, you know, just be safe, whatever. And then he decides to disappear. So basically, he lets the whole plan go, and he's not obsessed anymore. He's just like, you know, yeah. So it's like that very interesting. Like he could have, if he wanted to, you know, try to like, you know, take her with him or like try to like go with her or something like that, or try to do something like that out of his possession. But he does, let's say, change and release that point. And I think that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a really cool moment. And even after all this possession, he was able to just realize that it's not really what he wanted. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's interesting. And also, I like the point when which was then how can I say? Yeah, I don't know the name of the guy, but the directors, sort of like the managers of the opera, they try to run the place, and then when Phantom is sending messages through letters to them, and then they are like, for me, it felt like they are really considering, because it's really good ideas what the Phantom was suggesting, but then they struggling with the fact that it's coming from the Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned that Phantom was the real director of the opera, and it was an interesting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I also relate to what you said, that the singing was sort of absolutely enough to tell the story and the experiences, expressions, and then there was this sort of costumes and acting, but through the music they were able to express this whole story. It was amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah. We can finish it like this, and I suggest to check it out if you can and watch it. And thank you for watching, and thank you, Marzanna, for commenting. And see you next time. Bye.
Bye.